Donald Trump never fails to outdo himself. There is now a report that he wants to militarize the Canadian border. I'm going to get into this story, but just to speculate for a second, I have to imagine this is maybe just a way for him to pretend that the issue is from outside the country, from outside the U.S., and not within it, him being the issue. I mean, what better way to say, oh, this is the reason why we have so many cases is not because of the way we're handling it. It's because of the countries at our borders. Yeah, it's all their fault. We've got to militarize the border. It's a great way to pretend that the issue is not your problem. But let me go into this story. So Mercedes Stevenson tweets out here, breaking, Prime Minister Trudeau confirms the Global News story. White House wants to put American troops near the Canadian border to monitor for illegal border crossings. Trudeau says they are in discussions with U.S. officials and in best interests of both countries to remain demilitarized. Let me go a little deeper here from the reaction from the Canadian government. It's from CBC News. Canada's strongly opposed to U.S. stationing troops near shared border. So the Canadian government says it's strongly opposed to the idea of sending American troops to the border to intercept illegal migrants as part of the country's response to the pandemic. By the way, I'm going to get into some numbers here in a second. Again, showing you how crazy this idea is. But let me read a little more here. Quote, this is an entirely unnecessary step, which we would view as damaging to our relationship, said Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland today, following the first public reports that White House officials are thinking about stationing soldiers near the border. At the end of the day, every country takes its own decisions, but ours is an important and valued partnership, and we are making clear Canada's position. So just a few numbers here on exactly how the U.S. was planning or is planning to militarize it. A source with knowledge of those discussions told CBC News the White House is looking at placing 1,000 troops about 25 kilometers from the 8,891 kilometer long border and using remote sensors to look out for irregular border crossers. The source stressed that the U.S. hasn't made a final decision. This is hilarious. Why would you think that any Canadian would try to go into the U.S. with what is happening right now? Here's some numbers here. This from Global News. As of March 25th, there are currently more than 63,000 confirmed cases of the virus in the U.S. At the same time in Canada, there are 1,959. And just for purposes of understanding these numbers here, the U.S. has about 10 times more people than Canada. So clearly, obviously, the U.S. would have more. But if you multiply this number, say about 2,000 by 10, you get nowhere near 63,000. So there is a lot more cases in the U.S. and likely a hell of a lot more because not enough tests are still being done in the U.S., whereas in Canada, I believe we're now testing about 10,000 people a day. So this is a really good, I'll link to this. I'll link to all these links below the video under sources in the description box. But if you check out this BBC link, it shows you the progression of the cases. Let me just start playing it here. The progression of the cases as the dates go by. So you can see South Korea was testing everybody, so which is why they're really high on this list during this time. But then you're going to see Italy overtake, and then the U.S. will slowly creep up here. Maybe let me zoom or speed up a little bit. See the U.S. Look at that. Look at this move. The U.S. completely overtakes right there, right with Italy, and by the pace it's going at, is about to overtake, or maybe even has overtaken Italy at this point. But I will link to that below the video just so you can go watch it yourself or go into the story. More here on how rare it is to have these illegal crossings. Reports indicate that irregular border crossings from Canada to the U.S. aren't very common. According to a 2019 report from NBC News, data released from U.S. Customs and Border Protection showed 963 people were apprehended while crossing illegally from Canada to the U.S. in 2018. Who those people are, I have no idea. Likely maybe it's some of these people were previously banned from the U.S. For whatever reason and are trying to get in. I have no idea. But now especially, why the hell would any Canadian try to illegally cross into the U.S.? Also a reminder, right now the border is shut down between the two countries. They're still allowing, produce and that kind of thing to get through. But in terms of people just wanting to go to the U.S. to vacation or shop or whatever, none of that's happening and vice versa. I want to share a couple tweets here. So this is from Josie, tweeted out, "Yeah, Donald Trump, do put American troops near the Canadian border, but don't flatter yourself. It's to prevent your people from leaving. No Canadian in their right mind would want to go to the U.S. right now." She includes this graph here, which to be fair, it isn't a perfect representation of the cases in Canada. As you see, these dots really just represent how many are in each province and not where they are in the province. But most of the population in Canada is near the southern border due to, of course, the climate. But again, we have nowhere near the amount of cases that Americans do. Another tweet here. Quote, "I think I'll slip across the border illegally where the healthcare is worse and the president thinks people's lives are dispensable," said no Canadian ever. Hashtag no Canadian, which began to trend, is trending right now on Twitter. No Canadian trends after Trump floats idea of U.S. troops at border during the pandemic. I don't know what the hell is going on. So again, I'm just speculating that maybe Trump wanted to do this for appearances purposes, to make it seem like, oh, we're putting troops at the Canadian border because they're the issue. Oh, all these people are coming in through Canada. That's why we have this pandemic. Otherwise, like, maybe it's to put more money into the military. I mean, they have all this money now when it comes to they increased the military budget, the defense budget. Maybe it's just a way to employ more people. I have no idea. But clearly, it's not to help the country. This is not people crossing from Canada illegally into the U.S., especially during this crisis, is not a problem.